Our guest speaker tonight is George Skarbek, and George is part of the backbone of this club and has been for many years. And George could speak to us on many topics, from RAM drives to heat pump water systems, to doing videos from drones, or teaching glider pilots, and many other topics as well. But tonight George is going to talk to us about his electric car that he's had for a year, I think, or thereabouts, and talk to us all about that experience. So George?
I'm actually talk a lot more in general about electric cars, what you should look for, what to avoid, and a little bit about my car, a bit over 2 years. But we're a computer club, so I thought I'd start talking about computers. Now, I thought I'll find out what sort of computers I have in my car. And below's a breakdown from the specs, but BYD does not publish CPU, GPU, RAM storage. AES is advanced driver assist, and you can all read. All of these run on a dedicated module. However, I decided to try another AI, and then I thought if I try to do a Chinese one, I might be able to get some more information about computers. And sure enough, processor is a Qualcomm. Now, you've heard of Intel and AMD, everyone here, but I think every high-end phone has got a Snapdragon chip, and they're coming into lower mid-range desktops and tablets because there's a lot of grunt, and the battery will last a lot longer. The operating system, most cars, runs on Android Auto, and a few other things, and information, etc. What it has, display system that's sort of coming from other things, and we go to the specs. I'll now zoom in briefly. You'll be pleased to know I'm not going to go through all of this, maybe 1 or 2%. The CPU, 64-bit, 8-core, cache, etc. It's got a GPU, display, and NPU, neural processing unit, audio, processing, and so on and so on. So all in all, it's a pretty grunty CPU. And Kim is another, it's a Chinese one, and it gives a little bit more. A vehicle control unit, battery management, important, motor control, and the new model will let you charge at 1,200 volts. My car is 500 volts, fairly common. Many are 800 volts. Advanced driving computers, God's Eye, which does a lot of assessing, but it has 100 TOPS. That is 1 trillion operations per second. That's not a slouch. It's also developing its own and doing lots of other things, and BYD supplies chips to other people and does some of its own. And they're end-to-end. They own some of the mines for mining lithium, all the way to you've probably seen photos of the huge ships where they have 500. That's owned by BYD. So we've got the computers out of the way. Now, I'll just bring up something about Nürburgring. Most of you who've got any interest in cars would know about Nürburgring. I have an interest in cars. I used to race cars for a few years. But the first ever sedan went in a 6-minute range. Sedan. Doesn't matter if it's petrol, with umpteen turbochargers, or electric. It put on 10 seconds faster than this hypercar. They sell for $4 million US, and faster than the Xiaomi. They used to make phones until a couple of years ago, and thought, well, we can do a phone, why not a car? And they're doing actually quite well. A 300 kilometre speed, and it averaged 181 kilometre an hour. This is the Porsche. With, added a huge wing, a lot of downforce, and at high speeds, massive downforce. Now, a bit about history. In 1951, that's when Formula One started. It won by Manuel Fangio, arguably the best driver in the world. And the circuit was longer. Instead of 20 kilometres, it was 22. But the average speed was 138 kilometres an hour. This is nearly 50 kilometres an hour faster. Admittedly, it's much, 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 much safer, because it's got Armco barriers all around, about 2 metres, maybe sometimes 3 metres from the bitumen. You've got the Armco fence. So if you go off sideways at 200 kilometres an hour, you'll bend the Armco. Armco absorbs some of the energy. Without that, you would go into a tree. That doesn't absorb its energy. 200 kilometres an hour, no seat belt, even with a seat belt. That's, bye-bye. And in 61, Phil Hill was the first in the Formula One car to get under 9 minutes. And he averaged 153 kilometres an hour. Still way behind what a 4-door sedan can do. A fast electric 4-door sedan, admittedly. Now, let's talk about basics. A few things you should understand: the difference between power and energy. A lot of people use those words interchangeably, including people who should know better, the guys who are reviewing cars, expert cars. They use those terms interchangeably. Power is a force measured in watts, and 1 kilowatt, 1,000 watts, is roughly 1.34 horsepower. Energy is the power multiplied by the time. So if you have a small kettle that uses 1 kilowatt to boil a cupful, it'll only take a few seconds, but if you have it running for an hour, you'll use 1 kilowatt hour. Now, the power at the rear wheels can be measured by the torque, twisting moment, times RPM, and expressed as horsepower or kilowatts. You use different units for torque. And it has good initial acceleration. All electric cars have good initial acceleration because peak torque comes in at 0 RPM. So if you're at the lights, you floor it and you disappear fairly quickly. With a petrol car, torque is somewhere around 3,000 or 4,000 RPM. If you have a Ferrari, it'll be 5,500, 6,000 RPM. But you've got to get the revs up and power comes up. Now, batteries are normally 500 or 800 volts, and a family chariot has one moving part, the rotor. think of your normal car. You've got many pistons, crankshafts, conrods. You have an oil filter, an oil pump, petrol pump, water pump, oil filter, fuel filter. You've got your gearbox, you've got your diff, oils has to be changed, etc., etc., etc. This has only got one. And the efficiency is roughly 98%. 98% of your power goes to rear wheels. Roughly 35 for a petrol car, because most of the energy disappears out of the exhaust pipe or into heating the water in a radiator, which you need a fan to cool. Now, and services, depending on the car, it's either about 20,000 or 40,000 kilometres, and the cost is pretty low. I had mine serviced fairly recently, a couple of months ago, and it cost $165 and included a car wash. As I come up, I thought, shit, that looks clean, because I wash my car roughly twice a year, and it was cleaned on the inside. It had a smudge, small smudge near the top. They cleaned that, and also under the mat. They cleaned the mats. I thought, oh, I bet they didn't do it. Lift it up. They did. And they also included an Uber at their cost to drive me home. So you can't really complain about the cost of services, especially if you've got, say, an MG and a similar cost for every 40,000 K. The battery life is guaranteed for over 5 years, and this is on my car, at least 150,000 kilometres. Others give you more. It also has a vehicle to load, and it's not vehicle to the house, it's vehicle to load. They give you a 6 or 8 metre cable with a couple of power points. So you run that, and then for me to get in the kitchen and run the computers upstairs, because we were told a few days or a week earlier that removing a transformer just down the street will be without power between 8 a.m. and they said about 2 p.m. So I could run the kettle, have a toast, and put in another cable to go up in the study where my wife's computer and my computer are, and they're connected to a UPS. So I just plugged in from double adapter, one in each, and we kept the computers going for about 3 hours, having toast and coffee. And the battery was at 75%, and after 3 hours, it was either forget 72 or 73%. It only dropped by 2 or 3%. And home charging is cheap. All EVs have a low centre of gravity because the battery is right under the car, the subframe, and it gives great stability. On cruise control in the country, if I'm sitting on 100 and it says, advisory 80, I have it on cruise control at 100. Just don't lift. Absolutely no problem. I tried at 70. Yeah, you feel a bit of G-force, but it just clings on like crazy. I'm not suggesting you race them, I'm saying stability is very good. Now, better economy, you don't get it in the country. It's around the city because of the regeneration or regen and lower air resistance. I'll come back to the regen shortly. Air resistance varies with the square of the speed. At 50 kilometres an hour, EV uses about 20 or 30% of its energy, overcome aerodynamic drag. Rest is on a powertrain, accessories and so on. On freeways, at 100 kilometres an hour, it uses 85 to 90% to overcome aerodynamic drag. And at 200, which I haven't tried, 96 to 98%. of the energy goes to punching a hole through the air. Now, regen is excellent. Regen is the regeneration. As soon as you take your foot off the accelerator, it reverses the polarity of the motor, and instead of a motor, it becomes a generator. So you're coming up the traffic lights, lift, and in the dash I can see shows how much energy you're using driving along in kilowatts. As soon as you lift, the number goes negative. Brake hard, and the regen just goes straight up. It doesn't use hydraulics unless it's a real emergency. So whenever you're slowing down, you're getting about probably 95, 98% of the energy back into your car. I was a few months ago at Mount Buller, and from the village at Mount Buller to the gate is all downhill, and the entry gate is 15 kilometres away, and then it's flat to Mansfield. I took a photo to make sure I don't forget how much kilometres I'd left. By the time I drove 15 kilometres, my range had increased by 52. With an internal combustion engine, you'll just have very hot disc brakes. But the engine's got to be on, otherwise you won't have power steering or anything like that. And most of them have several, including something one-pedal driving, which is pretty fierce. And I test drove about 6 cars, and 2 of them warned me it'll take you a week before you're comfortable, so I didn't even try. And on almost every EV, the brakes will outlast a car. Now, some of you may be worried about the car catching fire. If you're worried about your car catching fire and you drive a petrol car, put it on the market tomorrow morning. Don't hesitate, guys. The chance of an electric car catching fire is between 1 and 2% that of the internal combustion engine. In other words, 50 to 100 times more risk of you driving a petrol car it's catching fire. And in some countries it's worse. This is from insurance companies around the world. England is pretty bad. On the freeway, sometimes the fog will come in, so people start slowing down, and then someone behind them is still sitting 100, and the car's almost stationary. So when you hit the back of a car, petrol car, it's got a fuel tank in the back which ruptures, and the friction from that and the hot exhaust, it goes up in flames. And often you read, 4 or 5 cars were burnt. Now, why BYD? They outsold Tesla worldwide by a fair margin, and also in Australia for the last few months. All the models, Tesla's only selling 2. BYD's got about 6 or 7 at the moment. And I've been looking at many, and I decided that the BYD was the best buy for my driving what I want to do. And I read that manufacturers have said they're amazed how much quality can go in at a low price. I was very tempted to buy an MG because that was cheaper, about $4,000 or $5,000 cheaper. And I was almost going to buy it, but I thought I haven't driven the BYD. As soon as I sat in it, I said, I'm not buying an MG. Just the ambience was so much better. I have a BMW before that, and I checked online doing the specs, and for almost identical range and very similar performance, the 0 to 100 time, the BMW was 0.3 of a second faster than my car. I got the long range, better acceleration, but the price was just over twice. So in other words, I could buy 2 of these and still be cheaper than one BMW. I don't know what extra it gives you, but for an extra 60 grand, it'd have to give you a hell of a lot. Range is the same, performance almost identical. Now, the BYD is at the lower price range. There's others with similar specs, but many have a slightly worse or noticeably worse fuel economy, which is measured in kilowatt hours per 100k. And I have 8.4 kilowatts of solar panels installed, and to me this is moderately important. It'll charge faster and cheaper. Actually, this was done a few days ago. I've just done over 19,000 because this weekend I drove up to Mildura and back, obviously, to have a balloon flight. There was and a bit of driving around, not much. It was about just under 1,200. So I knew I had to top up at least once there and at least once back. I'll come to that a bit later. And I've absolutely no regrets with my... Now, some of the good points. It's got quite a few. Very quiet. The premium model, as well as giving you a head-up display, better range, better acceleration, has got thicker windows, which means it's quieter inside, and it has better tyres. It's got another 8 or 10 things which I think are totally, utterly and completely irrelevant. And it also comes with a vehicle to load and a charging cable. Tesla then would sell you a charging cable for about $1,200 extra and no vehicle to load. Bad points. I thought that it's only got 2 levels of regen, and I thought, that's a bit lousy. But in practice, there's no problem whatsoever. Regen means when you're driving along, up Warragul Road or freeway, it doesn't matter. As soon as you lift, how much do you want it to slow down? Like a very light car in top gear, it'll slow down a bit. Or if you're driving a hefty diesel and you're in low revs, lift and it'll slow down more. So you've got a choice, and it depends what you do. I tried 2 days on each, and I settled for the higher regen. And so it just adds a little bit more energy, and I'm comfortable with that. And slightly harsher sprung than my previous car over potholes, but actually surprisingly good on a dirt road. However, the biggest thing is very optimistic about the range for Australian driving, and I'll come to that shortly. Range anxiety. Everyone says, what sort of range anxiety do you have? I don't have any. When you're looking around, because I know many people are thinking going electric because the price of fuel went up, it's coming down, but President Trump, as some of you might realise, is not that predictable. He might decide, he's going to attack after all, and the prices are going to do that. Electricity prices aren't going to do that. Look at the worldwide homogeneous light vehicle metrics. This doesn't matter whether you're driving a car, a diesel, petrol, electric, whatever. These are the sort of things you should see when they claim the range. The Chinese, and when I bought my car over 2 years ago, claimed the China light duty. It's heavily tailored. There's a few, without going into details, they've got a couple of tests. One is a 12-minute drive, of which you're stationary for 4 minutes, and you average 17 kilometres an hour over that distance. You actually do hit 40 kilometres an hour once. So basically in very heavy traffic, you're stationary all the time, and if you don't have heating or cooling on, you're not using any energy. And this is as a week ago, there's 1,600 charging sites and 4,700 charging bays. I live close to the Glen Shopping Centre. When I bought my car, there were 4 charging stations. I looked a month ago when I was going to get this presentation. There are 12 now. I have never experienced zero range anxiety with all the driving. Now, with my car, realistic driving, it's about 530 driving around the city and 480 on freeways. I had this set 500 on freeways, but I was updating it this morning and 480. I left fairly early, so I had a heating on for most of the day. That drains it a little bit, but BYD claimed 650, blatant claim. You can get 650. Sure, if I want to average 17 kilometres an hour in heavy traffic, I may be able to achieve that with no air conditioning, no hills, flat. Now they're advertising 570. That's combined. Pretty optimistic, but a lot better. And why is it better around the city? It's a regen. As soon as you lift your foot, it starts using the energy. Coming back to the Buller, that car weighs just a touch over 2 tonnes, and at 3,500 feet, it's a bit over a kilometre. So you imagine have a weight just over 2 tonnes with a pulley. As it comes down, it'll spin a generator. So you can put in a fair amount of energy, as in kilowatt hours. Now the benefits. These are my opinions. It's great to drive because it has instant and linear response. Really nice, especially going up mountains, windy road, put your foot down, just linear acceleration. You don't sort of have 2 or 3 or 4 gear changes as you're accelerating from 15 to 90 kilometres an hour going uphill. And it's quiet. I like classical music. I don't like loud music, so it's played quietly in the background. And as I mentioned before, initial acceleration is because peak torque comes in at 0 RPM. Low running costs. And with solar panels, it's very low. My car and a few more now have vehicle to load, and BYD is regularly updating the software on the car and on the phone. On the phone app, I get more and more. And a couple of months ago, I got the ability to unlock and start the car just using my phone. So if I'm somewhere and lose my car keys, I haven't done it yet, it's in the shopping centre, and I can't find them, I can still drive home as long as I have a phone with me, which I haven't lost yet. Now, my reasons. The big reason is I believe in climate change, and I believe in charging while the sun is shining. And during daylight, the cost of my fuel, electricity, for a 500 kilometre range is between 61 and 67 cents. For that, you'd buy about 1/3 of a litre of petrol, maybe a cupful. And some will use a little bit, yes. Large SUVs will be more, but it's still under $1, assuming you charge only when the sun is shining. Maintenance is low. I've covered that and covered that. Now, let's talk about charging stations. The image here is the most common CS2 charging. There are a few others, but I recommend that the car, if you're buying an electric car, has this type of a plug. And they vary between 11 kilowatts and over 300. My car with a 2-year-old batteries can only charge a maximum of 300. This is a Type 2, CCS2. is almost universal. There's another station, and also I can charge at a Tesla charging station. Now, for home, where I do most of my charging, I just use a 3-pin plug. Same in here. In here, I plugged in the laptop. Oh, what? Sorry. No, here we are. Sorry, I just must have touched something. Anyway, I was pointing to here. In here, I plugged in a 240-volt charging laptop. At home, I can do the same thing and charge the car. And realistically, forget the Chinese metrics. It gives you 10 kilometres, roughly, or a touch more per hour. Because once you've been driving for a while on my car, and I expect most of them will have it, will give you the average use in so many kilowatt hours for the last 50 kilometres you've driven. So if you keep driving down mountains all the time, 50 kilometres, your range will be infinite. However, on the freeway, it'll give you the average for a freeway. If you're just driving around the suburbs, you get quite a realistic, assuming you'll be doing similar driving for the next 50 kilometres. You can buy a fast home charger. They're about $500-600 plus $800 to $1,200 to install it. You need an electrician to do that and run a cable to your car, but it'll charge about 6 times faster. So you'll be putting in about close to 60 kilometres per hour. And the government has promised free power for between noon and 3 p.m. So if you plug it in each day, and most cars, mine has, and I expect most have, you can set it to charge at a certain time. Like, in the morning, sun rises about 8, I start charging about 9:30 to make sure it's quite high, and switch it off about an hour and a half before sunset, so I'm not taking power from the grid. In here, with this free energy, you can get about 450 kilometres in 3 days for zero cost. However, you have to apply for it. I don't know all the details, but if you don't use that much or at all, your electricity bill will actually go up. That might seem strange, but if you go onto that scheme, your feed-in tariff, the daily supply charge will go up. And when I'm shopping around for electricity price, I do that a couple of times a year. We don't use much electricity because of solar panels, so the daily supply charge to me is important. One was offering me a so-called good deal, it was $1.20. And slightly cheaper electricity. The other one, which I'm on, was about 70 cents. That's 50 cents a day. That's $180 a year before you use 1 single kilowatt of power it'll cost you. So don't rush out and say, oh, I want free energy. I mean, sure, you can run your dishwasher, vacuum the house, do the washing machine between 12 and 3. But anyway, yeah, and you can set it for charging. With this, you'll set it to start charging at 12 and switch off at 3 p.m. Now, there can be problems, and I encountered, actually, a couple of problems on the weekend. This graph, that's my car, and it's got a rubber seal here and here. This is a slightly different type, but it will work with this. These are protruding, and this is your high voltage DC. So, oh, okay. If you look at the graph down below, where it says 6.3 above that, you can see that there'll be another graph of that. And I plugged it into what I thought was going to be 11 kilowatts, and it's putting in 6 kilowatts. And the charging will take 10 hours. This is on Saturday afternoon. The balloon flight was on Sunday morning, and I was still about 150 kilometres away from Mildura. So I decided to drive to Oyen because some may not work or they may be full. And in here, have a look at the bottom left hand, and there's an arrow, and it says, I don't know, you should be able to read it. It's a charging station, 10 metres turn left, and the thing above that is the little charging station, very little. And it only put in 6 kilowatts. So the other way of charging, as you can see the graphic on the right-hand side, that's in the motel room. This is through the back door because on the front there's no openable window, just a door. So I'd have to have that open at night. So I just, after balloon flight, it's about 11 o'clock, I charge it a bit and just plug it in for quite a few hours. I didn't tell the management, they're big. You're gliding up at Mount Beauty, and in the motel I was staying, with gliding, the briefing normally around 9:30. It can't start early because you want the ground to heat up to get thermal so you can stay up. And late afternoon, as the sun is setting, the valley's in the shade and temperature's about the same, no differential. So we finish around 4:35. So I spoke to the hotel manager, and asked him, is it okay if I just charge my car overnight? And I says it takes about 1.5 kilowatts, and I don't know how much you pay for your energy. I said in Melbourne, I pay $22. He thought 22 cents a kilowatt hour. He thought his 25. So I said, look, for 10 hours, it'll be $2.50, but I'll be staying there for 2 nights. I'll be 15 hours probably from the time I come back. The pub was in walking distance, so it'd be on for about 15 to 18 hours for 2 days. So it comes to $10. I said, look, I'll give you a $20 note. That's tax-free, and then you can claim tax on your electricity. He was delighted with that, and so was I. That means I don't have to charge on the way home. I had about nearly 300 kilometres put in. So, remember, I had to buy a 20-metre cable because the charging cable is only about 6 metres. So make sure that you can do that. Now, BYD has its own maps. Everyone has its own maps, and I can use Google Maps as well. And you can charge. It shows you where the nearest charging stations are. This is Apollo Bay. My son has a house there. And it shows that you've got a Tesla, 1.2 kilometres, which I could use, but it's only very low power. And there's a higher power, which is 1.3 kilometres away, and it shows what's charging. The CCS2 is there, and it shows how many there are and how many are free. So this shows us only one of those there, and it's free. Now, Android Auto also shows you the charging. The left-hand one is at the same place, Apollo Bay. Now, in the middle, it's disappointing. About 6 months ago, Android, when you click on show charging stations on Android maps, they don't show you the nearest one. What it does, it shows you the sponsored. You can see in the middle, vehicle charging sponsored. And see this is a BP, which is 9 kilometres away. Is another one. And I have 3 others within 3.5 kilometres. So it's going to take you well out of the way because they obviously get a cut. And the other one is just a screen dump, the home screen from my app. And from that, I can turn on the seat warming and heating 5 to 10 minutes before I hop into the car, which is very nice on cold nights and on very hot days. If it's been left in the car park in the sun, I can start cooling, and from about 30 metres away, I can press and hold the open button. It'll wind all 4 windows down. I know the petrol cars do the same thing. But anyway, it's nice. Now, my home charging experience, I do most of it using the 3-pin plug. And, the feed-in tariff is 1 cent per kilowatt hour, so the charging is virtually zero. Now, my weekly driving is typically 55 kilometres, average over a month, and that can be replenished in about 5 hours. If I want to charge it from about 10 to 95%, it'll take roughly a week in summer and closer to 1 month in winter. This is when I'm charging only in sunlight, because in summer the sun rises at, just a bit before 6 and sets at 8:30. So I can, start charging at 7, where it's up 15 degrees on the horizon. So it's, charging 12 hours a day. And you only want 3 or 4 blue sunny days and it'll be charged. In winter, I'm still driving and it's cloudy, so it could take a month. Because every now and then you might get a few hours, or occasionally, if you're lucky, most of the day when it's sunny. And the days are shorter. But, that's my experience. However, for some reason, I get a phone call, can you be at wherever, some in the country? I can plug it in overnight. And it'll add about 155 real kilometres and cost me $3.30. If you've got a night tariff, it'll be substantially less. You just leave it plugged in overnight. No big deal. Now, if you are considering an EV, what should you be looking at? Do all your research online and compare the things that are important to you, like drive-away cost. That was very important to me. If you want a few $1 million, obviously that won't even appear on your list. The range and the metrics used. Remember, the WLP is by far the most accurate. NDEC, which is the new European driving cycle, is about 20-odd years old. It's worse, and the Chinese is wildly optimistic. Efficiency, that determines the charging time and cost. And the Chinese are quite optimistic. So you've got to take with a grain of salt. They claim 14.6 kilowatt hours per 100k. I'm averaging about 15.8, something like that. Now, obviously a look and feel, seat comfort and so on. Does it have a head-up display? Good storage both in the front and rear. Most of the EVs, if you lift the bonnet, there is lots of space with the lid on, because you haven't got your gearbox or engine in the front. It's in the back and suspended between the rear wheels. So you've got a lot of good space, and you've got another 50, 60, 100 litres depending on the car in front. Level of self-driving. This is on level 2. It's got the adaptive cruise control, which I use all the time as soon as it's on. It's excellent. And lane assist. And there's a problem with the BYD. And also, if you want to tow, have a look how much you can tow. Generally, the towing is pretty decent because it's got heaps of grunt, low torque. It can tow. No, mine is two-wheel drive. Yeah. Rear. BYD has the four-wheel drive. It was then $10,000 dearer, and it didn't give you anything extra apart from four-wheel drive and phenomenal acceleration. You could keep up with the Porsches and lower priced Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and so on. Phenomenal acceleration. I test drove that one and one level down 3 times, the BYD as well as the other cars. I did not drive the sports car because I was racing cars that's well over half a century ago. My reflexes and the feel are no longer there. If I tried blasting up the mountain with that staggering amount of power, it wouldn't end well, and I know I'd be tempted. So, yeah, but that'll have four-wheel drive. The range is a bit less, about 40 kilometres to 50 kilometres less because it's heavier. Every time you start, you've got the weight of a fairly hefty motor up the front. Now, possible traps. The obvious one, you run out of battery. And this is a screenshot telling me that I can't get home and I need to charge. But there are not many traps. And I suggest you plan to have at least 2 charging stations en route before you get to destination in case one is not working or it is very, very slow. And if it's very slow and someone pulled out in front of you in a small country town, there's only one, the next one will be 50 kilometres up the road, you'll have to wait until they finish charging, at least an hour on the slow ones or more, and then you'll need an hour and a half. I showed you there was in Sea Lake where it's only charging at 6 kilometres an hour. 6 kilowatts an hour. I went to lunch there, it was about 1:30, so I had a leisurely lunch, walked around, came back and got to 25 kilometres more of range. However, there's some good news. The cost was 31 cents. So the faster the charger, the more it'll cost you because I had to put in bigger infrastructures and so on, the convenience. But it gave me enough range to get to Oyen with another 50 or 60 kilometres to spare. So I went there and charged on a 50 kilowatt one and made Mildura with about 150k to spare. Now, the other trap is, let's say in the shopping centre, Glen or somewhere here, you plug it in and you're with the wife who likes to do a lot of shopping, maybe trying a dress and shoes and then maybe something else and something else. And your car was only, 2/3 charged. If it finishes charging and you haven't unplugged it and moved your car after 10 minutes, all so far I've tried and I've sort of signed up with about 5 or 6, maybe even 7 different ones, they all will charge you $1 a minute. So if you're an hour late, $60 will be added to your bill. Becomes fairly expensive shopping. Yeah. Anyway, that's close to my end. So anybody's got any questions?
Thank you, George. What happens if you run out of battery? Do you call RACV or? Yeah.
In my case, yes. I haven't been with RACV for nearly 20 years. No, it's not quite right. I joined up for a month about a few years ago because I was going to Udnadatta and another one when I was going, Darwin via some back roads. So I got the highest cost cover for paying monthly. So of course I didn't renew. But in this case, I'd have to join. There's a joining fee now. 10 years ago, there wasn't. and that's your only option. Otherwise, you have to get a tow truck to put you up and take you to where there's a service. So that's why I said plan 2 ahead. And you probably heard about the enormous crash that closed the Hume Highway. 6 or 7 semi-trails were involved, propane, alcohol, and so on. You might get detoured for 50k or more, maybe much more, to get around some side roads. That's another reason. I mean, there might be tiny, 2-horse town, which may sell fuel, but they certainly won't be able to charge. So your option then would be speak very nicely to someone in the service station in one of the shops, asking you go around the back where they have deliveries and run the 240 volt and stay there 3, 4, 5 hours, depending how much you'll need to get to wherever there's a new charger. But overall, providing you do that, I had zero range anxiety, because I know the GPS tells me I've got, say, from Oyen to Mildura, 101 kilometres, and I had about 174 at that time. The headwind will slow you down, your efficiency will drop a lot into a strong headwind. But even in nil wind, if you're sitting on 100 and you slow down to 90, your distance will go up by 20%, because the square of the speed. So you can limp along home. About 80 is roughly the optimum. And a strong wind, maybe 70. It's a bit of a hazard on a 110 km/h freeway, but it's better than running out and waiting hours for the RACV.
And same with petrol cars. You use a lot less petrol if you're driving at 90 rather than 110.
Yeah. The opposite works, just so Dave. I was going to Mount Beauty just about a year ago, and I looked at the range after an hour or two and I thought, shit, it's not quite right. I've got lots of range left, so I had a look at how much I used in the last 50 kilometres, and it was something like 10.8 kilowatts per 100k. I had a roaring tailwind. I had a howling gale right up the back of the car. So I did the sums, and I had a 710 kilometre real range. However, I wouldn't be going the other way. So, Dave, did you have a question?
RACV provide in that situation? What services do RACV provide when you're out of power?
I have no idea whatsoever. Don't belong to RACV. I joined NRMA because in Mildura there were 4 charging stations within 5 or 8 kilometres of CBD, but there was only one for 150 kilowatts. And there was the RMNA, the New South Wales equivalent, and signed up. Another tip, if you're going to buy a car, when you pull in at some service station on the freeway, many have chargers there, or you're stopping in some town, you don't need to charge up. I strongly suggest that you get the app, and it takes 10 or 15 minutes for me to sign up. You've got to scan, then you put your name, address, age, etc., and your credit card expiry date and so on, and then you can charge. So I did this often and charged typically for 2 or 3 minutes. So next time, if you're in a hurry, it saves you getting it. So I've got about 5 different apps. Question?
Yes, George. I know you have a good sense of humour. At Wadham House SIG 2 weeks ago, I noticed on your BYD a couple of dents in the driver's door. Now, I'm expecting an honest answer.
Yes. I honestly
Did you get angry with it?
An honest answer is I have no idea whatsoever. I noticed that someone else pointed to me. Now, This is the driver's door, this is the window. If there was a car or a truck or something a few centimetres away, I would see it. So I have no idea. I was actually parked at in a car park. I was in Central Car Park, and they're fairly tight, so someone must have tried to swing in or swing out. Yeah, that can happen to a petrol car as well.
Just a quick question on battery life. I noticed that I had identified 7.5 years guaranteed. One of the fallacies, I guess, that I've come across quite a few people who think that, you know, the battery's going to totally die potentially at 7.5 years or 10 years or whatever, but in fact, batteries gradually degrade.
Correct.
Over their lifetime. So you might get, you know, it's guaranteed to be better than 90% capacity at 7.5 years.
That's it. They guarantee you'll have 90% of capacity.
Right, okay, at 7.5, which usually means, you know, 75 or 80% at 10 or 15 years.
Probably, yes.
So, yeah, a lot of people have that false interpretation.
Yeah.
One last question.
All right, okay. So make it quick because I've got a very short presentation.
Yeah, very quick. You mentioned one moving part, the rotor. Are they a brushless motor?
Yes, they're permanent magnet, brushless. Usually it's a 3-phase AC, 500 volt, 4-pole.
Peter Carpenter online.
Oh, go ahead, Peter.
Yes, thanks, George. Just in terms of precaution, and rare though it may be, can you drive across a shallow creek in a car like yours?
Yes, actually I have.
Yeah.
It wasn't by choice. I didn't know it was a creek there. It was shallow. No problems.
Right. So
because everything is insulated. It's, remember, you know, 500 volts, so the insulation is pretty sturdy.
Right. Okay. And
now I'll just sum up. This is BYD. By the way, I'm not a salesman.
George, can we do one more?
Yes.
This is Alex Arpendoshte in the room. So when it comes to EV charging, is it possible that other EVs in the area also help charging the EV? Is it a case like that?
No, not that I'm aware of. If you're at a charging station, as soon as you lock your car, it locks the charger. It cannot be pulled out. This is to prevent someone coming up next to you when you're shopping, unplug your car, plug it in his and charging it for free. So that's prevented, but vehicle to vehicle, I don't know, because the charging plug, you put in 240 volts here, and this about 20 volts DC comes out here. In my car, 240 volts, 500 volts 3-phase AC comes out this end. So vehicle to vehicle, I don't know, you can get from 240 volts to 500 3-phase. Yes, okay. I don't want to sound like a salesman for BYD, but this is what they announced. The latest version, which is coming to Australia, will have a 5-minute flash charging and a lot more. I forget the lot more. They still mentioned, you know, this crazy Chinese metrics, you know, world thing. But to charge from 10% to 70 in 5 minutes is using the latest technology. They have, in China, 25% of their 20,000 chargers. So far in Australia, there are 3. One in Melbourne, one in Sydney, and one in Brisbane. Okay, so don't hold your breath. Okay?
When I got into my car, this is unrehearsed, this little bit, fact, it's all really unrehearsed. Got into my car this evening, I turned it on, and the screen came up and said, rebooting after software upgrade. So I thought, oh my, how long am I going to be stuck here for? But it seemed like it moved very quickly. So I got up the street, and there's another big screen thing on the screen, which I couldn't read in with my eyes, so I had to actually stop the car, and it was the terms and conditions that I had to accept before I could drive any further. So that is in my BUID car, which I'm generally very happy with. A couple of little software glitches here and there, but probably I'm the only one who can detect them because I've been in that embedded software space since forever. So I notice these things very readily. Okay, on to the formal notes. I just want to remind everyone, both here in the room and at home, that we've started with these daytime monthly meetings, and there've been 2 of them so far, and they've been really successful. We've had up to, I think, 11 people attending the other day. We had lunch, a presentation from our vice president about dental torture equipment, and a little quiz and so on. It was a nice social thing around the big square table there. I'd love for us to need more tables or a bigger table, or next time it'd be next month or this month, later this month. Won't tell you the date because I don't know it offhand. If you could make it out during the day and drive your car during the day, come over and attend the lunchtime, literally lunchtime club meeting. It's good little social event. I kind of want to get that social thing back into the club after it was killed off by COVID. I think that's an important part of being in a club like this, that we had that social interaction. So just think about that, please. And I'll keep on pestering you in the What's On newsletter as well. I've been getting into AI. I've been really getting into AI. The last What's On newsletter was actually put together by an AI. I'm working out a workflow for that to minimize the amount of effort that Marlin has to go to when she gets back. I think because we are a technology club, it behoves us to be, I won't say embracing, but integrating it into our operations where and when we can, so that we are sort of staying on the leading edge of technology. That's quite aside from any social or political implications of AI, which are things that do worry me. But at home, and I'm really enjoying it at home. Makes me feel a little less lonely having Claude to chat to from time to time. So I've been doing the What's On. The PC update was largely put together by Claude. I didn't deviate very much from the existing layout that Marlin has been doing because I don't want to make it more complicated, but Claude at least sort of normalized the format of the various articles and things to a better degree. And did all the proofreading as well. And I don't think there are any American spellings in there, so I did a fairly good job with that. And occasionally it'll sort of say, well, that sentence could be a bit better, which is what a sub-editor should be doing. So it's a very useful sidekick. Also, you will find now this sounds a little bit funny, but on the Moorabbin Makerspace website, which is our Let's Bring in the Young People website for activities other than IBM PCs. I've created a little widget applet thing for producing a nice picture of a custom-built birthday cake or greeting cake. It's not particularly a service to members as such. It's something that I can legitimately put out on social media as a thing to attract people to our website. I mean, the first thing you've got to do if you're marketing is get people to come and have a look at what you've got to offer. So this is sort of bait. So if you go to moorabbinmakerspace.org.au/ I think it's maker cake or baker cake, you'll see that little gadget widget. And that was produced almost entirely by myself directing Claude AI into what I wanted. And Claude AA in turn tapped into Gemini, which is a much better image generator than Claude. Claude couldn't generate an image to save its life. Gemini can. And I thought the thing was going to take about an hour and a half to do. In fact, it took a day and a half because I ran into all kinds of problems with getting licensed access, and I had to pay for access to Gemini for the image generation. But it works. So have a look at that, and I'll put it out in the what's on Thursday too. So that one. And I have others in mind, by the way, some that will be a lot more useful, particularly for people who travel. One idea, and any other ideas you might come up with, you might have to give it a bash yourself, or pass on your ideas to me for useful widgets that can be generated quite easily. Which sort of kind of leads into marketing. And those widgets are really intended as things to put onto Facebook and all the other social media, which Mick is getting really into now. And I'm not going to steal his thunder, don't worry, mate. To attract people into Moorabbin Makerspace. Birds. I don't know who saw the article about birds in PC Update. They remain a problem downstairs, and we had some input this morning from Jan Whittaker. I hope you're watching this, Jan Whittaker. You've got a mention here. But further about that. But it's a vexing problem. It's a very vexing problem. The maker room, as I mentioned in I think in PC Update, there's a resin printer sitting downstairs in the process of being commissioned and set up. Mick's right now on the printer over there printing a part of the ducting for the ventilation. Am I right about that? Yep, got the nod on that. And is Rob here? When's the... Oh, Rob's in the control room. Who knows when the door will be delivered? Sliding door. Okay, we've ordered a sliding door to go between the two halves of the expanded maker room, sort of next door across the corridor. So we're moving forward. It's always slow moving forward in an organisation like that. And of course, anyone who wants to volunteer and bring along a hammer and a saw and actually get into helping out will be appreciated. I receive more complaints than I receive offers of volunteering. Let me just put it that way. Okay, that's it for me, and I'll hand over to Mick. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Starting with social media, David touched on. We now have a TikTok account for Moorabbin Makerspace, as well as the Moorabbin Makerspace Facebook page. David put a mention of that in the What's On Weekly on Thursday last week, and that helped us get 8 new followers on Facebook within 24 hours. Thank you, everybody that heeded that call, because it does help the algorithms make other people find us accidentally. And once they find us, we know they love us. And Chris Hayes, he lives a fair way out of Melbourne, but he's offered to help me produce videos and short reels and stuff with content provided by members. So if anybody's working on a project, they've got some progress photos they'd like to share to the wide world of, you know, what sort of interesting things you can do at Moorabbin Makerspace / MelbPC, send it on to either Rob Brown or myself. Other than that, I'll make it quick. Things coming up. Maker Mondays. We're building things for the club for members to use. So that's on the 1st and 3rd Monday each month. Come on down from 11 o'clock and we'll just make something useful for our members. 3D printing Wednesdays, 2nd and 4th Wednesdays each month. If you want to come in and learn to 3D print or if you've got something to print, you can pretty much come in any Wednesday and there'll be somebody here to help you. Our CNC project build down in the workshop is coming along really, really well. We're doing some testing on Sunday, fine tuning, so it's almost ready to start slinging projects. So get on down and get involved on a Sunday. Check the calendar to make sure it's on. The 4th of July weekend coming up, we've got our sewing group active here at Moorabbin. So if you're into anything textiles or craft, come down and join the gang there and get involved. And David mentioned our daytime monthly meeting. Now, our member Mike Maxwell makes a really, really nice lunch. I cannot stress enough how good the meal is for what you're paying for. We've been charging $10 as an introductory offer to get people in. And everybody's quite happy, I think, to pay a little extra to make sure that Mike's not going backwards on the deal. So from here on in, it'll be $15 to have a lunch provided for you, and you'll have to book the Friday before, by the Friday afternoon before the Tuesday daytime meeting. Well worth it. And yeah, we've been running a quiz. David Evans has put his hand up to run the quiz for me so that I can concentrate on other things. Thank you, David. Great social atmosphere. It was really good last month to get quite a few more people in here and start looking a little bit like the Wadham House lunches. You know, so the challenge is we want more people here than the Wadham House lunches. So we can have a little bit of friendly banter between the different 6 locations. October's coming fast, so I'll keep mentioning it every month. 3rd and 4th of October, we've got a big table at an expo in a primary school or high school, sorry, around the corner in Clayton, just off Centre Road. We've got a stall for 2 days to promote our club. So if anybody's got the time and the energy to come down and help us bump in and bump out, or to just man the tables and talk to the public about our great club, we'd love to have all the help we can get there. But yeah, bring your projects. They can be computer projects, maker projects, or anything else, photography, podcast, whatever you like. So yeah, just get on involved with that, and just come in during the week. You know, the place is open most days. It's a little bit hard while Marlon's away on holidays. So the last 2 Tuesdays, the office hasn't been open because we haven't had a volunteer to come and open the doors. So it's still a call before you come basis for the next few weeks while Marlon's away. But most days there's somebody here. Just come down, hang out, have a game of pool, have a cup of coffee and a chat, and just get a feel of this place and what it can offer you if you haven't been here already. And I'll leave it at that for tonight. Thank you very much.
David and Mick and the other members of the committee have been doing quite a lot to put more life into the club, and also to remind us that we are a club. And that's why the main reason I come here on this night rather than join in at home, because I really like, you know, meeting and getting to know the people, which you can't really do if you just rely on being online. But thanks, David. Thanks, Mick. Now, Chris McKeown, are you there?
Yep. Hi,
Good on
Barry.
you.
Can you hear me? Yep.
We can hear you.
Good.
Chris is with the iHelp team, which I think is one of the most important facilities of our club. And Chris wants to talk about Google's advanced protection feature. And no doubt, Chris, you'd be happy to do a bit of Q&A.
Yes.
And at 9 o'clock, as we always do, we will stop the recording and formally close the meeting, but then the discussion can keep going informally after that time for as long as Chris and others want to. So, Chris, thank you. Over to you.
Thanks, Barry. Good evening, everyone. Happy to be here representing the iHelp group. So one of the first things I thought I'd mention is that the federal government's mandated with SMSs that any company that's sending SMSs with an SMS ID has them registered with ACMA, and that's basically to stop some of these scams. So from today, actually, if you're getting a text for, say, a toll, an unpaid toll or something, or something else, if it says unverified on the sender, then you should treat it with due suspicion. If it's verified, and you'll tell that, I think, because of the colour, at least on the example I saw, it was green, then you can reasonably think that it might be genuine. Nevertheless, you still take the same precautions with any unsolicited text message, and rather than react through the SMS, actually call your provider directly on the number that you know that your provider is available. So I just wanted to mention that because that's starting today. So I think in the next few days we'll probably all see some of them, and hopefully it does what the government is aiming for it to do. So now we'll go on to now.
Chris, can I ask a question about that?
Sure. Yep.
Barry here.
Yep, Barry.
I've received some emails recently from individuals that I know, not from organisations.
Yep.
And but they've been marked as unverified and resisted downloading them because some of the content I wanted to. But I was surprised that they were from individuals and not from an organisation.
That's surprising. This only applies to organisations. So unless those phone numbers are perhaps registered with as a business or organisation number, then I would, then that might be the case. But otherwise, I wouldn't expect individuals to be marked as unverified. Although I do know that you can with some proprietary formats, so like the Apple iMessage, you can choose to verify your contacts, but that's a completely different system, and I presume Google has that as well. So I'm wondering if that's what might be the case. Oh, something's happening to my video, but I'm going to. So I'll go now. Verified. To try and share. Let's see if I can now share. I'm having trouble sharing my presentation. Can somebody enable my sharing for me, please?
Can I just ask you a quick question while you're trying to get that worked out?
Sure. Yeah. Go.
My name's Graham Seymour.
Hello, Graham.
I received. We had power outages out in our area today, and I got a message from AusNet at 12:34 advising that the power was back on. Now that message came through unverified, it says on the message. How long do they have to get this verification or whatever it is in play?
Good question. My understanding, just from what I've read, is that they're all supposed to be registered by today.
Okay.
So they have to go through a process. So it doesn't. So saying unverified doesn't mean that it's not legit. Just don't respond to an SMS, which is good practice anyway.
Yeah,
Contact them
Okay.
directly.
Thank you.
Right. I'll try and do a share again. So in the theme of AI, I did use Gemini AI to put together the slides for me with a prompt that covered the things I wanted to talk about. So why am I talking about this? It's a feature that Google's had available for quite some time. So I'm talking more than a decade. Mostly for people who had a high need for it, and I found myself in that high need category. I was getting what they call 2FA fatigue attacks, where they just keep peppering your account with 2FA requests, hoping that you will, rather than push reject, it's not me, press accept and then let them in. So this is one way to address it, and this presentation is really just to give you some information about it, because I think it's not heavily promoted at all. It's not well known at all, and I think just it's something useful in today's environment, today's cyber/scam environment. That's useful. So so what is it? It's Google's highest security tier. So Defence in Depth Shield. They update it quite regularly with new defences. Primarily, it's centred around their Gmail service, but it also works with browsers as well, and it's primarily defending against phishing attacks, which is I think still the highest mode of people getting malware or malicious programs. So it's designed for high-risk users, so journalists, IT administrators, political campaign staffers, high net worth individuals, and I wouldn't put myself in any of those, but it's also available free of charge for anybody who has a Google account. And there's the big number there, 0 compromised accounts. That's a pretty significant feature. So there's 4 pillars to talk about. So the first one is, how do they do this? Well, originally you had to use a hardware security key, and you can see there in the diagram a variety of them showing the Google Titan hardware security key plugged in, but there's a YubiKey there in the background. You probably can't see that very well. There we go. It's a YubiKey. And I'd already set up my account with YubiKeys, but it was originally it was only one form of 2FA on a Google account. That's evolved into something quite different now. But you'll see in the lighter text there, it says hardware security keys or device passkeys. And a lot of people now are using passkeys for authentication with the Google account and others. Microsoft mandating it or trying to push people onto it. Apple similarly. So passkeys are becoming dominant for accounts where you need a higher level of security. At least that's where they're aiming for us to go. Pillar 2, data sovereignty. One of the other factors is that you can only use either verified Google apps or vetted third-party services. And what that means is that you have to use up-to-date versions of, let's say you use Microsoft Outlook, you have to use an up-to-date version of that. That will work fine. Thunderbird will work fine, but not the old apps that don't work with OAuth 2.0. So it's a security requirement, if you like. And what do you get for that? You get enhanced scanning for malicious links and phishing within Google Messages and within the Chrome browser. The third pillar is recovery. So because this is a very secure process, the forgot password recovery flow, which was actually how I was getting 2FA fatigue prompt, goes through a manual process. And I'll talk a little bit more about this in a little minute. And that takes several days to complete online, and you're doing it with a human. So hence part of the setup is that you actually have to have either two security keys or a security key and a passkey or 2 passkeys on 2 separate devices to help you to ensure you don't get locked out of your accounts. So the advantages is we've really covered that. So unparalleled phishing defence, which I think is absolutely right. As far as I know, with passkeys and with security keys, it's, wouldn't say impossible, but I think it's very difficult for you to be phished, for somebody to steal your credentials, because it's all done cryptographically with private key signatures. You get enhanced download protection, so Google are scanning the files that you're downloading, and to their best ability, they're deciding whether they're harmful or not. And if you use an Android phone, and I've set up an Android phone with this as well, it actually turns up some of the security features. And I should say that I've also set up an iPhone, and the Android phone process seemed to work a little bit smoother than the iPhone. Both work, but just seemed to work a little bit better on the Android phone. So as I mentioned, so the trade-offs, so older email clients, so older versions of Outlook or Apple Mail that use app passwords will stop working on enrollment, and that's part of the process. And if you lose your security key or passkey, then you can be potentially permanently locked out. But more likely a significant multi-day delay to slow down and make sure that the right person is verifying their identity. So how do you do it? And I should be really clear here, I'm not saying that everybody should go out and do this, not at all. This is really for somebody who finds themselves in a situation where they're concerned about their account security or the security of somebody that they're looking after. And so you've got the process is pretty straightforward. In fact, it took me less than 5 minutes, I think. So you've got to have mobile passkeys, so 2 devices, one on your computer, say, and one on your mobile phone, or your hardware keys. Verify your recovery info, so make sure that you've got recovery email and recovery phone numbers in your accounts, and then just go to that address, g.co/advanced protection. And the note is that it's per account. So if you've got multiple Google accounts, you don't have to have them all protected. That's up to you, but you can use the same security key, physical security key for multiple accounts. And should you want to leave the program, that's also pretty straightforward, actually. So you access your security settings and select unenroll. Then you'll need to use your security key to verify, and then you'll revert back to your standard 2FA that you used previously. So that was really all I wanted to bring to your attention. So it's something for you to just poke away in a back corner of your mind somewhere, and one day it may come to being very useful. In summary, I'd say I found the process very easy, and I know one of my colleagues on the iHelp team has also gone through the process, and he reported the same thing, and for a similar reason. He got to a point where he was quite concerned about his private Google account security because he was in a data disclosure. So any questions?
Chris?
Oh, Harry.
Hi, quickie. I've always wondered about those physical keys.
Sure.
They've got a regular USB 2 plug, I take it.
Let me see if I can show it to you.
I mean, they'll only plug into it, right? So they're only good for a device with that port, aren't they?
No, I've got another one, which is USB-C.
Yeah, okay.
And also, I can't show you that, but they're also NFC. So they work with a phone. You do that. You just hold it up to the back of the phone.
Okay.
Yeah. So it will work with a phone, with my computer's actually USB-C, so I actually have an adapter USB port just for that.
Okay, right. I guess
So
that covers. But
they're
you're saying
really
you
a
need
good.
more than, are you saying you need more than one to cover all your devices?
The original setup for this passkeys being invented was that they required you to have 2 USB keys.
All right.
With the logic being that you locked one away somewhere safe,
Okay.
and one that you use day to day.
Yeah.
But now with passkeys, with
Yeah.
nearly the same equivalent security, that what they require you to do is do one on your computer on your account, but also to make sure you've stored the passkey on your device, on your mobile as well.
Right. Okay.
Chris, this is Jack.
Yes,
I
Jack.
noticed it said something about app passwords may no longer work. That could be a concern for me, because I know that my webcam sends me emails and it makes use of the app password to validate my email account sending.
Okay, yes, so that won't work anymore. Yeah, that's a genuine concern. Yep. And the reason why it's simply a matter of security. Google have been mandating. I'm not sure, so I don't know if your mail provider is Google. I'm presuming that they are, but Google have been quietly in the background mandating OAuth 2 for access to all their accounts. So we've over the last 12 or 18 months, we've been getting calls of people who are using programs like Outlook 2016, all of a sudden weren't able to sign in and get their mail because the apps didn't support OAuth 2. If your camera software supports OAuth 2, then it should be okay. It should work. But it's sounding like at this stage maybe it doesn't. And you may find in time that it won't work.
Chris, we've come to 9 o'clock, so the recording will be stopped.
Yep.
And so formally the meeting's ended, but this can continue as long as you and others want to.
I'm happy to continue discussing.